Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll. Bring the noise. Welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the eighth wonder of the world. Up with a century. Up is timeless. Thanks for coming out tonight. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that.
All right, that's right. We got a little music in there, a little bit of a musical interlude or intro there. Welcome back. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you, and I hope everyone's going to enjoy this. I always enjoy speaking with everyone when we do these Q&As, and I'm looking forward to it because I get to hear some of the most interesting things from some really great people throughout the entirety. I reach out across the nation, across the world, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. By the way, yes, you can call in. Yes, you can leave comments on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and we should be able to see all of them. That is my expectation, and I'm going to be looking forward to that. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, not just one subject, but a bunch of subjects. I want to hear your input because I know you have a thought. And very often, most of the politicians, they're just not paying attention. They're not hearing your voice. They're not talking to you. And that's a problem. And we have to figure that out. We have to solve that. And I think the best way to do that is to speak out. And I know that many of the politicians in the local area, they do, in fact, listen to this program. They do try and hear what I have to say. They hear some of the things we cover. They don't always like it, but that's not really the issue. The fact is that they're paying attention. So this is your chance, your opportunity to give back a little bit. Now, for a bunch of people who are wondering, what is this guy rambling about? Who is this guy? I'm Michael Voss. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I make people nervous in politics. So I'm here with you today. We haven't had a real honest Q&A, question and answers, your thoughts, your feedback, your comments to me. We haven't really done that in a while, and I apologize for that. It's been a hectic time, both with the elections all around the corner, as well as trying to make sure that, that I'm doing my job, my 9 to 5, and trying to do this. And, this costs money, so I have to work. I have to work twice as hard. And I think I do a pretty good job of that. So with that said, let's talk about what are some of the issues I want to talk about. What about Maxine Waters talking about Facebook? What about Facebook editing the election and the information that you're going to be receiving and the censorship that they engage in, the shadow banning that they do? What about talking about plot and Antifa? Big issues, especially in my hometown, my area of the Southern Tier of New York, talking about what's going on there, talking about corruption and politicians who are abusing their power and the early voting that's been affecting a lot of people. How about talking about what's going on with the 2020 election and the predictions that we made back in October that look to be coming true right now? How about we talk about all of that and anything else that you guys think of, anything else that comes up in your mind? I want to cover it all. And I probably want to start off with Maxine Waters, Facebook, starting in that point because, not everyone gets it. Not everyone sees it. That Facebook is probably one of the worst mediums out there. Not because everyone gets to Facebook. I mean, everyone's on Facebook. That's not a question. But the problem isn't that. The problem is that Facebook is very active in editing and censorship. And we've been very, very much against that. We've been fighting against that for years and years and years. In fact, I was speaking at Binghamton University. I was speaking about that at the first Amendment Censorship and Compelled Speech conversation or discussion at SUNY Broome, which you can see at the Voss Political Commentary. And that was back on September of 2018, just a little over a year ago. And there's a certain comment from that. This is the transcript of the speech that I had made, and I'll get into that because there is a quote in there that I do want to read back to everybody. But we have to remember, Facebook has admitted over and over and over again that they are less than scrupulous, that they are more than willing to edit information, to shadow ban individuals, to go out there and censor and destroy the First Amendment right of free speech, that they listen to the public, and we've caught them doing that. They listen. If you have a Facebook app, Facebook routinely and intermittently goes into your camera and onto your phone, and they take video and they listen to your conversations on the phone. Whether or not you realize it, in that whole terms of use that everyone says yes to, nobody reads, there is a small stipulation that allows Facebook to randomly listen to you, to randomly spy on you. That's how they get those messages tailored on your search engines. When you're going through YouTube and you see that, hey, I was just talking about something with a friend of mine, cars or something, and then suddenly car ads show up. You're on and you're doing a search for, I don't know, a video game, and suddenly that video game ad shows up on your Facebook account. It's because they're paying attention, that they're spying on you, because you've agreed to it. But this company, which is more than willing to listen to your private messages, to listen to your conversations, to read your emails and your messages on their system, they're also the company that Maxine Waters wants to be editing your information on the election. Now, that's kind of scary when you think about it. These guys, Mark Zuckerberg, have a very, not even subtle, direct point of view. They have a message and a goal that they want to put out there. We have seen hundreds, no, we have seen thousands, maybe tens of thousands of individuals who are conservative, who are Republican, who are not far left progressives that have been attacked, that have been banned, that have been silenced and shadow banned by Facebook, by Twitter, by Google in an attempt to silence them because they don't like the comments made by these individuals. And that's been emphasized ever since President Trump got in, but it's something they've been doing from almost the beginning. And their power is incredible. If you can't find news about something, then you can't make a decision about it. You have no choice. It is a destruction of your freedom of liberty because you have no choice. You don't know a choice exists. Even if you search for the choice, it is denied you. That is a lack of information. That is a lack of freedom. That is a lack of thought. If you can't find information, you can't think about it, you can't make a decision, you have no choices. There is no freedom in that. And I know I'm publishing on Facebook right now, and I have many times had problems with Facebook dropping out my signal on a regular basis. But be that as it may, we have to be very aware. This is not a good thing. Having Maxine Waters and the Democrats both insisting insisting that Facebook goes out and fact checks and tells people, well, this is what we think is correct. Here is an organization you can go look at, and here's an organization you can't. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got into the mix on this as well. She had a line of inquiry or conversation with Zuckerberg asking why Breitbart News is part of the fact checkers, which I would love to see, for Facebook. And he's one of the proved ones because an international coalition has determined that Breitbart is news. Whether or not anyone likes that, whether they're right-leaning or not, has nothing to do with it. The fact is that they are. And Maxine Waters wants them removed. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants them removed because they don't like them. That doesn't mean that you're free. If you take away the voices you don't like, that doesn't increase freedom. That doesn't make you better. That doesn't help you. What that does is shut down thought. And it's a dictatorship. Now, it may be worded as something very positive and something very good, but it's a dictatorship. And that's a bad thing. That's a problem. At least that's what I see as being a major problem. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think that Facebook should censor. I don't think so. But that's just one thought. And I think it's a big one. I don't know. Are people really worried about the censorship in Facebook? Are they worried because more people get news from Facebook, from Twitter, from Google, and each and every one of these major monopoly giants has an agenda which is left-leaning and silencing people's voices. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I'm a big advocate of the First Amendment. I can't stand to see when people are silenced, even the people I don't like. When I see progressives being silenced, which almost never happens. When I see Democrats being silenced, which almost never happens. When I see libertarians get silenced, which happens a lot. When I see that happening to conservatives and Republicans, which happens a lot, I speak up. Not because I agree with any particular view, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But if we don't have that conversation, then we don't have freedom. And I think that's a powerful thing. In fact, when I had a speech earlier, I had mentioned it a little bit. And one of the things when I was speaking at BU, one of the things I mentioned in my speech back September a year ago is I said, it is my opinion that there is no separation of free speech, free thought, and free life. These are the fundamental essence of this nation and its aspirations for all generations past, present, and future. While there is no guarantee that such speech, thought, and life will always be pleasant, and there never should be such a guarantee, we possess the power to ensure they will always be present. I like that. It's a great quote. I think it was a great way to end my speech there. And I think it's something that needs to be said more and more. We have to protect our free speech to be able to protect our free lives. And that's the only way we can do it. That's the only way that it works. Because if we don't do that, we're not free. We're slaves. We're slaves to media. We're slaves to information. And it doesn't help anyone. But again, you may disagree with that. And if you do, that's okay. But I want to hear what you have to think. Going into something else, and I see some people are, one of the things I saw, you may have seen it on my Facebook, and I'll put it up right now, is don't do meth. Don't do meth. You know, this is what happens to you. It just gets worse and worse. Just a public service announcement. And I see a couple of people have been looking at that and commenting on it. So I wanted to bring it up while we're speaking here. I don't understand why people do meth. I don't understand it. You know what's going to happen. It's like people who are doing heroin. We have how many people overdosing every single day, every week, every month? And as we watch them overdose, we have arguments about whether we should save their lives with Narcan. And some of these people go back 7 times. They overdose 7 times in a day in one case. They're overdosing weekly. And we have to ask ourselves, why? Why are people continuing to use this? You know what the end result is. It's poverty, it's death death by overdose, if not by violence. It's crime. Why are people doing this? I don't understand it. It's not worth it. And if we can't say that often, I don't think it can be said often enough. There's no reason to do meth. There's no reason to do heroin. They end in the worst agonizing places for human beings. Don't do it. Just like I was talking about with free speech, I'm talking about free choices. Yes, you're free to make a choice, but this choice will destroy you. Why make that choice? Let's get that information out there. I know we have a culture that thinks that drugs are great, and a lot of people like using their drugs. But at the end of the day, we see that lives are crushed, are destroyed, opportunities are removed on a regular basis. Why do this? There is no rainbow at the end of this. There is no pot of gold for doing meth or for doing heroin. We don't hear enough people say that. I don't think we hear enough people, real people, say that. We see, the just say no ads. We hear politicians say, hey, I'm going to fight against this. We have politicians now who are saying, matter of fact, in the Broome County DA debate, which was on Wednesday of this week, on the 23rd of October, we had 3 Broome County candidates. There was Deborah Gelson for the Democrats, Mike Korchak for the Libertarians, and Paul Battisti for the Republicans. And Deborah Gelson and Paul Battisti were very much in the idea of saying, hey, we need to help these people by giving them safe spaces. Battisti did not say that. Deborah Gelson did. That we need to give people safe spaces, that we have to give them the opportunity to use these drugs safely so that there's Narcan present, because that's a humane thing to do. It will make us feel good because it's a positive thing to do. No, I don't think it is. That's torture. That is prolonged torture. I know they do it in Ithaca and they do it in other parts where they say, hey, you can do your drugs here in this one spot and it's okay. And again, some of the DA candidates were very sympathetic to this. With Deborah Gelson, even Paul Battisti was sympathetic to this. I don't agree with that. I think that's the worst thing. You're extending someone's torture. You're allowing them to go to a place to continue to destroy their lives. Now, do you think a DA should try and encourage people to get into safe spaces, to be able to have legal drug use when they're using heroin, when they're using methamphetamine, and other drugs that are just as dangerous, crack, cocaine? Why would we do that? Why should the DA do that when people are actively breaking the law? You're saying, and some people will say, well, Mike, you got to understand, these people have an addiction. It's an addiction they chose. At the end of the day, they said they went out there and they found the dealer, they asked for the drugs, and they injected or used those drugs. That addiction was caused by them. And while I'm more than happy to help people who are addicted to get themselves help and save their lives, I don't believe enabling them to continue to destroy their lives is a positive. Ed Carroll, hey Ed, it's good to see you here. And he's joined us today. And Ed mentions that they've become enablers for the cartels. Yeah, that's true. Because that is an aspect of it. You can't get rid of drug crime if you're at the same time saying, hey, we're going to give safe spaces to drug use. That we're going to allow these drug users to continue to use heroin and amphetamines and everything else. You can't say, and crack cocaine, you can't say that if they're going to continue to use it, well, we're going to stop drugs. You're feeding these people these drugs. That doesn't make them better, and it doesn't stop the crime, and it doesn't stop pushers, because let's think of this from the root. If you're allowing people to use these drugs in certain places, that means you're enabling the drug dealers to continue to sell, because they know they have a clientele that's not going to die off, so they'll continue to buy these illegal drugs. I mean, is it that far of a leap, Ed, you tell me if you think so, that by enabling these people to have safe spaces, you're promoting more drug and crime? More drug crime is going to be allowed in this way. Ed responds, they won. We're holding up a white flag. I'm not holding up a white flag. But that's why we need this conversation. Some people agree with Deborah Gelson, who's running for the Broome County DA on the Democrat side. And they agree that, no, we have to help these people by letting them continue to use these drugs and destroy their lives. Paul Battisti he said no, but yet he was very sympathetic to it. And we had Mike Korchak who said no. Fine. Everyone has a different point of view on this, but I think we need to have a real conversation that says, no, we're not going to help you. You're going to get off the drugs. And if we have to put you in jail to do that, if we have to put you in a program to do that, whatever it takes. And we're not going to continue to constantly give you Narcan. You're not going to get a Narcan saving injection 7 times in a day, or even 7 times in a month. Maybe that's harsh. I don't think it is. You have to draw the line somewhere. And you have to do it back in the 1920s, China had 80% of its population that was addicted to opioids, to opium, exactly. And you know how they got rid of that? The communists came in and they killed every single drug dealer and every single addict until they virtually wiped out the problem. And they had it on TV every day, day after day, filling up squares. Every channel was there showing that if you use these drugs, you will die. I don't agree with that extremist answer. And before we have to get to that point, let's fix the problem. I don't know. And if you have a DA that's going to promote that, I think that could be a big problem. That's me. Other people don't agree. I think the debate with the DA candidates was really good. And I think we should have had more of them. And I know that there have been several events where the Republican candidate, Paul Battisti, has not shown up, has not given his voice. And that's a problem. And whether you agree with Paul Battisti or Deborah Gelson or Michael Korchak, that's up to you. But to hear them and to hear their voices on this is important. And I think that when we heard Deborah Gelson mentioning that she thinks that she's sympathetic to this and wants, mind you, she did say she would follow the law, but New York state law is changing because of the single party control that Democrats have right now. And we've seen them pass en masse more and more laws saying, well, it's okay. We understand. We feel bad about this. More in line with where she is. And that's a problem. Because today, the law says that you have to prosecute. But by January, that could change. And that's a problem. Especially if we have more elections where more of the Democrats who are sympathetic to this are elected. But maybe that's what you want. I don't know. Maybe people want that. I don't know, Ed. I don't think we should have the white flag up. I think there's a line that has to be drawn in the sand. I think we have to tell people these drugs will kill you, and if you take them, you're going to die, and we're not going to keep saving your life. We will give you an opportunity to save yourself, and we will help you if you make that choice, and if you don't, you're going to die, because heroin addicts die. Meth addicts die. They go to jail and they die. That is a fact. I'm not asking them to. I'm not encouraging them to. I'm not saying that that's what we should do to them. But the reality of that path leads in a horrible death. That's where it goes, over and over again. And we need to be very honest and very direct and not coddle anyone, whether they're considering using these drugs or whether they are using them, in telling them that this is where that path leads, and we're not going to simply enable you to be able to go down that path. That's like saying, okay, you're standing on the edge of a bridge. Should we tell you, hey, go ahead and jump? No. No one would do that. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. We're going to try and talk you off that ledge to save your life. That's what everyone would do. If we're thinking about taking care of people with drugs and allowing them to have safe spaces, you're not taking them off the ledge. You're helping them jump off. You're pushing them. At least that's the way I see it. And maybe I'm too strong on this. Maybe, Ed, tell me, if you're still there, am I wrong? Am I being too harsh? Because if I am, people, tell me. This is a conversation. We won't all agree on everything. And if you think this is wrong, tell me. Maybe there's some aspect of this I don't understand. And for those people who would say, well, Mike, you don't have a family member that's ever had that. That's an assumption. Yeah, I have had family members who are very deeply addicted to drugs. I've had a couple. I've had a couple of them die. Does that mean that my position should change? No. I had the same belief then I have it now. Not everyone will. But in watching them fall down that trap of drug abuse, yeah. One died because of it. Another did do the work and still struggles to stay clean and sober. But they have to work on that. So I've been talking a little bit about that. What else can we talk about? I know that's an interesting subject, and I thank Ed Carroll for speaking up about that. So I started with the First Amendment, about our freedom to make choices, our freedom to think, our freedom to speak. And those people who would take it away from us, like Maxine Waters, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the people who want to manipulate our ability to get the information to make a decision, like Facebook, Twitter, and Google. But there's other people who are doing similar things. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Because this is an example I'm going to use. People have heard me talking about it recently. It's not the DA race, but a candidate, Dan Livingston. He is currently a city councilman for Binghamton, the city of Binghamton. And Mr. Livingston is embroiled in a scandal of his own creation. And I've been very vocal about saying that I disagree with this. But Mr. Livingston recently came out with his answer about why this is okay. That his violation of ethics, his abuse of power, his misuse of public funds, it's okay because, it's a political hit job. It's an October surprise political hit job to be able to call him out for abusing his power and for misusing funds and violations of ethics. And this is from Fox, our local news station, with an update from Councilwoman Livingston, who comments on the intern investigation, a scandal involving Binghamton University, as well as the City Council of New York and the City of Binghamton. And this comment, which came out on the 24th, may not have been seen by a lot of people, especially any of the voters in the 2nd District of the City of Binghamton, which Mr. Livingston represents. Because Mr. Livingston's page doesn't talk about this. As an advocate for transparency, he doesn't want to be transparent with his voters to let them know he is under investigation. Instead, he has been asking people to go out and vote early, starting today, to vote for him without having all the information, without the knowledge to make a choice. Mr. Livingston is making the claim that the allegation is that he has an intern. And in his quote, his statement, he says, if alleged issue is I had an intern, really bad writing there, Dan, nothing in state or city law prohibits me from working with an intern. If alleged issue is that my intern canvassed for my campaign, there is nothing in state or city law that I'm aware of that prohibits her from doing so. Well, that's almost entirely correct, except you're leaving out a couple of things there. By your own admission, and as we have shown previously, video that Dan himself taped. So this is his own words. He admits that he had the intern working for him exclusively, not for city council, as it was supposed to be, as Binghamton University was told, so he lied to them. And the intern who worked for him exclusively and provided information for him on a political partisan basis exclusively, that intern was at the same time a paid member of his campaign. That's an ethical violation. It's also a misuse of public funds, and it is a violation of abuse of power. There's your crimes, Dan. And you're not being honest with people and telling them if it's an allegation about getting an intern. Well, actually, to get the intern, you needed a approval by the city council of Binghamton prior to getting the intern, which you did not do. You were told, you didn't do it. And you admitted that on October 21st. And at the same time, you had that paid political campaign staffer working for you in the city. That's a violation. That's like lobbying. There's a couple of violations there. So he's being very dishonest. Now I have to ask you, I find it absolutely aggravating that a politician can go out, claim that they're for transparency, and instead deny the public the information that they're under investigation while running for a campaign. That they will deny people the truth of what the investigation is about, and deny people the opportunity to see the admission of guilt that was videotaped by Dan Livingston himself. His voters should know that. If he's an advocate for transparency, he should be putting out that video, which is 15 minutes long, and I've shown it on some of my prior podcasts, 15 minutes long, and it shows and details exactly what he did wrong and his admission that he did in fact do that wrong, which is why he voted unanimously to investigate himself along with every other member of city council. Even the Democrats voted to investigate him without question, without argument. Not one person said, "Oh, I don't think this is fair." Dan Livingston himself did not say this was not fair. If it was a political hit job, wouldn't he have mentioned it then? No, he didn't. Instead, he's now, after the fact, trying to make up for it so he can save his election campaign. The fact is, he committed crimes, in my opinion. And I can cite the law that he violated. And he's not telling anyone. And instead, he's telling people, go out, vote early. This is why I did the podcast about voting early. I think it's the worst thing you could possibly do. You're voting ahead of the election day. You can't take that vote back. If the investigation being done by an outside independent group finds out that, in this case, City Councilman Dan Livingston broke the law, as he has admitted, then what? You already voted. You voted for him. You voted for a criminal in that case. And you can't take that vote back, even if you want to. Even if you go, well, I can't vote for a criminal. You already voted early. You did vote for a criminal in that example, because he has not been convicted, so I don't want to say that he has. But I'm using that as the example. This is the problem with early voting. Once you learn more information, suddenly your vote may change. Knowledge makes a difference. Knowledge that Mr. Livingston doesn't want you to have. Knowledge that the rest of the Democratic Party won't address. Where is Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo? Where is County Executive Jason Gunnar? Where is City Councilman Conrad Taylor? Where are they in this? Especially City Councilman Conrad Taylor. Why is he not speaking up? What about the candidates? The Democratic candidates like Salka, about Angela Riley, Aviva Freeman. Where are they? Why are they not talking about this? Why have they not addressed the admission of guilt that Dan Livingston has made and how that affects voters? Does the local Democratic Party, the progressives, do they support this idea? I don't know, maybe am I the only one who's concerned about that? Am I the only one who's angry about that? Have enough people heard about that? Have you heard about it before I spoke about this today? That Mr. Livingston admitted his own guilt in a video and that he has not published that to the public? That his comments to the news media absolutely refute his own personal admissions on live videotape? Am I the only one who is aware of it? Is that something that matters to people? Because I think it matters to me. Tina DeBella has joined us. Hey, Tina. And I see Tina says, I find the only people for early voting are Democrat candidates. I work 10 to 12 hours a day and can make time to vote on voting day. Early voting is a scam. I agree. And I did some research, and actually I have a prior video on this as well. It's been found that early voting does not increase the amount of people who are voting at all. There is no increase whatsoever. It's found by study after study after study, going back as far as 2003. No one has found that early voting has actually increased the number of people who vote. So voter apathy remains, partially because of things like what Dan Livingston has done, where I've heard from many people saying, I can't trust the government. Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, I can't trust it because we got people like Dan Livingston who commit a crime and then deny it afterwards and won't tell anyone about it. And the news media won't show the evidence so that people can know the difference. So yeah, that's why we have voter apathy. That's why New York State ranks about 42nd out of 50 states on election day in every election for the last almost 2 decades now. Because you get this. But the early voting is meant to make sure that people vote for, headlines, vote for commercials, to vote on old information that isn't accurate. Because if suddenly the news media comes out tomorrow, or even today, we had early voting start at 12 noon. Can you imagine if you came out at 12 noon and you went and you made a vote for Dan Livingston, then you see this podcast, you see this live discussion, and you've come to realize that Dan Livingston is a criminal by his own admission, then you just wasted your vote, potentially. That's the problem with early voting. You can't take that back. It's done. And now you have 10 days of information that you can get on this. If you doubt that I am telling the truth on this, if you doubt the videos I have done on this all week, and I'm not going to show them all here. I've done it all week. And listening to WMBF, and you're looking at some of the other news media that have been reporting on this, properly reporting on this, then when you find that out, you have 10 days to figure that out. If you vote today based on old information saying, well, Dan said he didn't do it, except Dan did say he did it on the 21st. And if you find that out 2 days from now, your vote is wasted, potentially. I don't know, maybe it upsets me. And this is just one extreme example, perhaps, but it's an example. And it's an important example, I think. Early voting isn't the answer to voter apathy. Better government is the answer to voter apathy. Having politicians who can stand up and do their job, that's better for voter apathy. You want to see voters involved? Have good candidates. Candidates unlike Dan Livingston, who aren't out there to try and abuse the law, abuse their power, misappropriate funds, and to have secret meetings and secret tapings. I think that's, if you can get good candidates, people will come out and they will vote for them. But you're not seeing that with the current crop. Dan Livingston, Aviva Freeman, these are supporters of plot. Salka, these are supporters of plot. And if you're wondering what plot is, that's Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. Also, very similar to and possibly the same as Antifa, the organization in Portland, which exists in Binghamton as well. These guys, they're not good people. Antifa. The members of Plot are a secret organization. They are a fringe group of the Democratic Party by the admission of Plot itself and the Democratic Party. They are a fringe minority group of people who have secret meetings, and their leadership is unknown. They won't speak to the public, but they will come out and they will do protests. They will take away your freedom to enjoy yourself. They will take away your right to speak by interrupting your events. They have done that. They will do that again. And plot is not done there. Going on to yet another subject, you'd be surprised. Since the Columbus Day parade in Binghamton, New York, we have had a lot of people who have come out and talked to me, Democrats who have talked to me and said, hey, plot is vicious, that they have been going around and they have been intimidating people in the Democratic Party to not speak up, to not put their voice out there, to forcing them to try and support them, to support plot, progressive leaders of tomorrow, socialism. And I know of a couple of people who have been so intimidated it has affected their work. It has put pressure on them. They've lost sleep. I'm not naming those people at this moment because I hope there will be an investigation into some of the things that have happened to them. And this is a prominent Democrat. I mentioned the name, and I guarantee you half the city's heard this name before. Prominent Democrats. I know that there are elected Democrats who have no idea what's going on with plot, that this organization is so secretive that they won't even talk to elected officials unless they fall in line with the agenda of plot, which is to succeed by any means, to go out there and attack until they get their way. They have demands. A secret organization has a demand on the public, and they won't tell you who they are or what their agenda is. They'll just tell you, you have to do what we say, or we're going to ruin your lives until you do. And they are actively doing it to private citizens and members of elected officials. That's a problem. That's a problem, and we need to find out who these people are. They should have no problem speaking in the light of day, talking to the public. I can probably name a couple of names of people I would believe are members of the leadership of plot. I can mention Masai. He got arrested on Columbus Day for disturbing the peace and violating the freedom of others so that he could impose his will on the public amongst three other individuals and the dozen people who were actually standing in the way. That's not freedom. That's not even a protest. That's a violation of law. That's disturbing the peace. That's taking away people's rights and freedom and intimidating kids. They should have been arrested instantly. But, the police were trying to give them a nice opportunity to speak their voices and to get out of the way. Instead, they decided to keep going. Mark Secor has a comment. And thank you for joining me, Mark, and thank you for your comment. Mark says, plot is controlled by Tariq Abdelaziz and Mayor Ryan, also has a hand in their control. They are open border, anti-police communists who want anarchy to reign supreme so they'll have a chance for control once the dust settles. Tariq is a very dangerous rich kid who is full of rage and hate. Okay, Mark, what I can say about that, I agree that plot is an open border, anti-police, socialist organization. They say so directly in their messaging out there. There is no question that they are bullies, political bullies, personal and private bullies that try to use the weight of their secret organization to force people to do their will. And I don't doubt that they're willing to burn everything and just so they can sit on the ashes and claim that they have won. I do not doubt that. I do believe that the people who are involved with plot are dangerous people. Now, I know that Mayor Matt Ryan, he's the former mayor of Binghamton. He's a well-known leftist. He is a well-known progressive. And that doesn't automatically make him a member of plot. Although, right after the Columbus Day Parade, Matt Ryan appeared on Tuesday and said on WNBF that he had spoken with the members of plot. He was aware of their intention to protest the parade and to interrupt it. He was aware of the crime that was about to take place, and he had disagreed with it, and he argued with the members of Plot about it, which implies that he, if not is involved with Plot, he is aware of who is involved with Plot, and he is aware of the leadership of Plot, not that he will disclose it to anyone, and that he was aware of a crime and did not inform the police. This is all from his conversation on WMBF, which is a talk news radio station in the Binghamton Southern Tier region. And he admitted that to the host, live, on air. Now, as a lawyer with a law license, if you are aware of a crime, you are required by law to inform authorities. Just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean that you don't inform the police and try to prevent active crimes. But Mayor Matt Ryan did do so. And he did say that on WNBF by his own admission of his own free will. So he knows who's involved with Plot, which may or may not involve Tariq Abdelazine. I don't know for a fact. I have heard many things about who is and who is not in the leadership. I have not gotten a final confirmation. Otherwise, I'd be blasting it out right now. Could it be Tariq Abdelazine? Possibly. Possibly. Does Matt Ryan know who it is? Absolutely. That is the impression that he made on WMBF. He won't tell anyone. He's maintaining the secrecy of this organization, and that's a problem. Tina DeBella says, I'm not sure about the personal view of Tariq, but Plot is a bad organization with no good agenda at all. And though not sure of their association with Plot, I could see them both actually agreeing with and backing Plot in many of their actions. Again, I'm not saying that Tariq is or Matt Ryan is or are not members of Plot. I can't say that. What I can say is that Matt Ryan did say on WMBF that he is aware of who is in the leadership, that he had a conversation with Plot before they committed the crime that they got arrested for on Columbus Day. Those are facts. That I can say for sure. Well put, Michael. Keep up the good fight. I am trying to keep up the fight. Thank you, Mark. But these are important things to talk about. And that's why I want to talk about it. See, Plot and secret organizations, the far left fringe that hide out in little houses in the dark, making their little plans to try and intimidate children at a parade. These guys, they only win when we don't talk. And I am more than happy to have people tell me, Mike, you're wrong. I don't agree with you. And it's okay. You don't have to agree with me. The freedom of speech doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that I say, just as I don't have to agree with everything progressives say. That's not freedom. That's authoritarianism. That's socialism. That's communism, as we have seen in every socialist and communist nation in the world, in China, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. We see that all the time. No, freedom of speech is just being able to have the conversation and understand that I think the majority of people, not just in the Southern Tier, not just in New York State, I think in the entire nation and probably the whole world, people don't agree with intimidation by secret groups that have agendas that no one knows about and only act when they can force their will on someone else. I don't think anyone agrees with that. I don't think the people of Binghamton agree with that. And while I will even go, and let's remember, even Assemblywoman Donald Lapardo, even County Executive Jason Garnar, who will not speak about the violations or the alleged violations by Dan Livingston, they were happy to speak out and say they disagreed with Plot. I wish they would say it 4 years ago when I was first reporting about Plot, the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, and Antifa entering into Binghamton when I first found out about it through my investigations, and that they were planning to make moves politically in this region. And we have seen that happen. And we now have at least two admitted if not members, supporters of Plot. That's Aviva and Salka, who are running for the city council, possibly a third in Angela Riley. It's unclear. That's a problem. That's 3 out of 7. With questions about Dan Livingston, that may be 4 out of 7. That's a problem. Imagine if Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, if Antifa became the control of the Binghamton City Council, if they became the leaders of government. Imagine what a group like that would do if they're willing to intimidate children at a public event. What do you think they would do if they were the ones making the laws and enforcing the laws and had all the power? Imagine that. But don't worry, go out and vote early, because you don't need to know the answer to that. You just need to see an ad and then vote down the party line, because that's all that's important. You don't need to consider what happens after you make that vote. You don't have to consider what happens if the progressive far left actually take control. You don't have to worry about that until they knock on your door and say that they don't agree with you, and now you're going to get punished, even though you may not have committed a crime. That when they come after you, cyberbullying you, and coming to your business and disrupting and taking your property, when they start doing that to you, it's already too late. Because it's not that they're not doing it now. They're just not doing it to you right now. But what happens when you're the next person? What happens when it becomes you that they're coming after? Which is why I'm so excited about this, why I'm so very angry about this. Because we really need to be accountable. I understand that people are pissed off about bad government and bad politicians. I understand that. And I can guarantee you that it's not limited just to Dan Livingston. He's a bad politician. He's done very bad things. He's abused the power and he's abused the government. And I can understand why people would have apathy about going out and voting, because they expect another Dan Livingston is going to be elected. If Dan is out, then there's going to be another progressive Democrat that's going to come out, another socialist that's going to come and take his place. I understand that's what people think. Although, if you're voting, you can get the best candidate in. And maybe good candidates will run if they know they're going to have the public support in fighting against things like Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, and Antifa, before every neighborhood becomes like Portland, with riots right down the street. Because I can tell you, looking at what Plot is doing, and from what I can understand about what they have planned from various sources, they want Binghamton, and they want every town to be like Portland, with riots, racial riots, economic riots, people fighting against each other with them sitting on top of the heap because they just want power. And you're not good enough. They're just the right ones. They have the right answers. And I've talked to these members. I've talked to some of the members of Plot. And mind you, not everyone who's in Plot is like that. I think some people are just rank and file members and don't know enough about the organization. I've spoken to people who have been in Plot who don't know what's going on in that organization. And they are shocked when I show them the sources and the proof of of many of the things I speak about and what I have publicly put out there. And they're shocked because no one will tell them. They go back and they ask the organizations and they get the answers confirming what I'm saying is true about these organizations. And that's not what they believe. So I'm not saying that everyone who's in Plot, I'm not saying everyone who's part of the fringe far left, the socialist movement, are bad people. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the leadership, the people who are guiding this, who are having those secret meetings that police and the press and even other members of Plot are not allowed into many of the meetings that this organization has, which means they don't trust their own people. which is kind of sad. At least I think it's very sad. Not everyone will. Not everyone will agree with me. But I think more people would agree with me than not. I don't know. You tell me, folks. Am I just ranting? Am I not on the right track? Is this okay? Do we accept that progressive leaders tomorrow, they're just inevitable? That they're just going to take over? That New York State is so blue, that we're so far left, that it's inevitable that we must have the fringe left. We must have these secret organizations taking power, destroying our cities, destroying our governments, destroying our economy because they want to. Is that inevitable? And I mean, I'm talking from the basis of course, the southern tier of New York, but you can say this same argument about anywhere. Long Island, New York City, you can say it in New Jersey, you can say that in Ohio. I've had these conversations with people in Arizona. I've talked with people in Maine. I've talked with people down in Florida, in California. This is not just a local issue. This is happening at every level of our government, everywhere. And if you think that it's not going to affect you, I know several Democrats who are at this moment fearing for their lives, fearing for that they are going to be persecuted because they have an opinion. And that opinion isn't exactly what Plot wants. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I think more Democrats agree with me than disagree with me. I'm sure there are more Republicans and conservatives who agree with me than disagree with me. But I think absolutely there are many, many more Democrats, rank and file, real people who disagree with Plot far more than they're disagreeing with what I have to say. In fact, I think they agree with me. And we saw that at the Columbus Day Parade. So I have to ask you a question. Will it take another parade? What if Plot goes quiet, like they usually are, and they bide their time, and they wait for the early voting to get passed to protect some of their candidates, and they wait until after the election to protect some of their candidates, and then we have Thanksgiving, and we have our Thanksgiving Day Parade across the country. There's early voting in 37 states, so they're doing this across the country, and then we start having our Thanksgiving Day parades. And what if Plot decides that they're going to come out and they're going to again intimidate the public, terrorize children? What are we going to do then? Oh, it's too late. Oh, I didn't know they were going to do that again. Except they've mentioned that they are going to keep doing it until they get their answer. And by the way, when you think about it, what Plot does, what progressive leaders of tomorrow does, what Antifa, the so-called anti-fascists, what they do is terrorism. Call it domestic terrorism, international terror, it doesn't matter. It's terrorism. They terrorize people through intimidation, the threat of force, verbal abuse, what kids now call microaggressions. That's what they use to get what they want. That's terrorism. Those are terror tactics. That's what ISIS and Al Qaeda and the PKK, which is out in Turkey, if you don't know that one. That's what they do. These are terrorism tactics. Intimidation, threat of violence, putting fear into children and people who disagree with them alike. That's a problem. Now, and by the way, folks, you're not just limited to text. People can call me if you want. The number's up on the screen. So we're more than happy to have that conversation there. I'm more than happy to have, checking the Twitter. Obviously, I can see the Facebook as well. I'm more than happy to have conversation with folks, as we should. Because this is something that's important to everyone. At least I think it is. Let's go a little bit further. Let's keep going. And by the way, you can chime in. This is a conversation, folks. We're having a Q&A. We're having a discussion. It's not just what I think. It's whatever we think. So you're more than welcome to kick in, make your thoughts known as well. You want to, if there's a subject I'm not touching on, please let me know. And I'm just commenting on Facebook right now. And my comment was, thank you for commenting. Please keep it going. I think that was seen on Facebook. Don't know. But I do thank everyone. And let's keep it going. Let's keep speaking. There was something else I wanted to talk about. Do you know that right now we're seeing a lot of polls out there, and they're saying for the 2020 presidential election. And they keep saying, and this is from Quinnipiac, they recently have polls showing Elizabeth Warren is in the lead for the Democratic primaries, and she's beating Biden. We know that according to Real Clear Politics. If you've been following the charts there, Biden's on his way down. Elizabeth Warren's pretty much second place, but right now, Biden's got 27.2% of the lead. Warren has moved up to 21.1%. Sanders at 17.3%, where he's been pretty much steady all the way. With Pete Buttigieg moving up to 7% and Kamala Harris at 5.3%. Quite honestly, those are the candidates. And everyone else you can just ignore. Andrew Yang, who can't do math, is not a factor. Beto O'Rourke, who's promised to take people's firearms, to take their property, and to disregard their Constitution, God-given rights. Beto O'Rourke is not a factor. Klobuchar, Gabbard, Booker, none of them count. They're just not important. And if you're thinking about Ed Stack, who recently has mentioned some rumblings about whether or not he wants to be running for president, he's going to run into the same thing that we saw in New York City with de Blasio. Yes, he's got a lot of money. No one likes him. No one cares. If Mr. Stack wants to run for president, please go right ahead. Waste the family money. You'll get the same results that Kim Myers got when she ran for Congress. No one cares. Your money's not the answer. I don't know. Maybe Mr. Stack thinks that by taking away people's firearms, taking away their constitutional right, that it's going to make them win. I have a really great question about that, because I hear it all the time. I hear people say, well, you shouldn't have a firearm. People who never have had a firearm, people who don't understand firearms, say you shouldn't have a firearm. The only person who should have the firearm is the government. And those people also say the government is corrupt. Does that make any sense? If you think the government is corrupt, you want them to be the only ones with firearms, the only ones with weapons? And do you know what happens when you do that? You get Venezuela. That's not an if, that's not a maybe, that's a fact. It was reported by the New York Times. Over 5,000 Venezuelans have been killed in the last 2 years by their government because the only people who have firearms is the government, and it is corrupt. So if you think the government is corrupt today, or it could be tomorrow, why in the world would you want them to be the only ones to have firearms? I don't understand that. Excuse me. So Tina has a question, or a comment. I have a question not on this. That's perfectly fine. Again, this is a conversation with you guys, so ask away. And Tina says, I have seen on Facebook lately stuff about HR 1111 and giving up many rights to the UN. I looked it up and it seems vague. And I see it was introduced on February 2019, but I don't see if it was signed or dismissed or what. Any thoughts about that? I don't instantly remember H.R. 1111. I follow a lot of bills. That's not one of them. I've been following a lot of bills, mostly the bills that Anthony Brindisi has been not getting through. The most ineffective congressman in Congress at this moment. And if not I believe he's the most ineffective person possible, and that makes him absolutely useless. If you can't get 5% of your own party, you can't even get 2% of your own party to agree to a bill that you're doing, to the things you're proposing, no one cares what you think then. He's useless. So why have him in Congress? But H.R. 1111 is the Department of Peace Building Act of 2019. Really? There's a title for you. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Thank you for Tina provided a link for those who are just listening. And this is a bill sponsored by Representative Barbara Lee out of California. Shocking, considering the title. And this bill is anyone sponsoring this? 35 co-sponsors. Anthony Brindisi would be falling over in joy if he could get 35 people. He'd be happy to have 5 people joining in his bills. Okay, so, and it looks like every single person who's on this list is a Democrat. Yeah. Everybody seems to be Velasquez, Welch, Jackson, of course, Sheila Jackson Lee. I'm just looking through to see if there's anybody who's not a Democrat and not a far left. Though Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar supports this bill. Considering what I know about Representative Ilhan Omar, her highly racial views about Jews and others, her lack of civility, I would say that if Ilhan Omar is in support of this, which means the squad is in favor of this, that would be also Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If they're supporting this, I absolutely tell you that it's trash and should never be passed. But let's see. Is there anyone else who's got support on this that's anyone of note? Anyone who's a Republican? Anyone? Nope. Ted Lieu, also of California. Also pretty far to the left there. No. Nobody at all. So this is predominantly a very left-leaning group. And Vic, I see your comment there that you want to disband the UN. I can't really fault you on that, especially since we're paying for it. If it's going to exist, it should be at least better. But I'm trying to get the bill, and just so people can see what I'm looking at here. Hang on, folks. There you go. So you can see what I'm seeing. And if you ever want to know where you can find out about bills, it is congress.gov is one of the best sites. It will give you the bill, who supports it, what is its chance of passage, and just some more information about it. But I'm trying to find out. So they want to have a department of the government that's dedicated to peace building, peacemaking, the study and promotion of conditions conducive to both domestic and international peace and a culture of peace. What are they talking about? Death squads? What does that mean? Seriously, folks, read this yourself. It was introduced on February 8th. And I do not know. They want to have, as part of the executive branch, a law enforcement body of the United States government. They want to enforce peacemaking. They want to enforce peace building. They want to enforce conditions of domestic and international peace. I'm sorry. That is terrifying to me. No wonder Ilhan Omar supports this. Those are terrifying statements. Those are the kind of statements that you hear. I hate to use the reference, but it's true. Hitler. The Nazis use this kind of language. That they're going to create a department of peace. So they had to rally up all of the Jews. They had to enforce peace. So they rounded up all of the gays. That they killed the gypsies to ensure that there's a culture of peace in Germany. That's what that language is. That is some of the most terroristic, most evil and vile language I've ever heard. Their intention may be something different. They may explain this to the public differently, but this is what the bill is to do, is to enforce peace, to force people to be peaceable. Let me ask you something. It's a really interesting question. To understand the bill is to understand what it does. What does this do? It makes you be peaceful. What if you don't want to be? Okay? What if this conversation on Facebook right now, a conversation on Twitter, a conversation on YouTube, a video, what if you're watching something and they don't think whoever this executive board is, this political group, because it would be a political appointment. So this political group don't agree that being able to speak is peaceful. What do they do to you then? What happens then? What if they don't believe that it builds peace to have free speech? What happens then? What do they do? Do they silence you? Do they silence you by having a group of secret police, possibly members of Plot or Antifa, come to your door and take you away in the middle of the night? That's a terrifying thought. This is a terrifying bill. The fact that it's all Democrats doesn't surprise me, but it also terrifies me that an organization that hasn't gone completely socialist yet, although it's well on its way, when they can say something like this, that they want to enforce peace, they want to create a political government department to enforce peace, I hear that as they want to create the Gestapo. And if you've watched anything, the Gestapo is not positive. They're not good guys. This ain't Hogan's Heroes. These are the worst of the worst. These are the people who run death squads in South America. It's the same language. Tina, thank you for pointing that out. That terrifies me. That is one of the most terrifying bills I've seen in a long time. The fact that 35 members of Congress believe in this should terrify everyone. I don't care if it was a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, anyone who supports that language to create a Department of Peace where someone has to force peace on the American people should be terrified. And God knows, because I said this, YouTube or Facebook are going to block me now and censor me and shadow ban me again because I'm disagreeing with someone creating a Department of Peace, because that is dangerous. That is secret police. That is the end of freedom. And to answer your question, Tina, what is the status of the bill right now? There is no action. It's been introduced. No one will touch it. It's not going anywhere. Thank God. But it would if anyone ever paid attention to this. At this moment, it's been introduced. It has gone nowhere. And if it does move anywhere, and I'm going to follow this bill now, if it does, I'm going to make sure to make a loud noise, because that is one of the most dangerous documents I have seen in America in my lifetime. And we should all be terrified of that. You should be terrified of that. If someone wants to put together a Department of Peace. Remember, who's defining the peace? How do they define making you peaceful? If that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. But, and I'm not trying to fearmonger, I'm trying to wake you up. That's a terrifying statement. What does it mean? How does it get done? That should terrify people, regardless of your party, regardless of what you believe politically or personally. It doesn't matter. But we do have a couple of comments. Let me catch up. It's Vic mentions, and Tina mentioned first that that's what I mean by it. It seems so vague. Tina, I don't read that as vague. I read that as a threat. I read that bill as a threat. Vic goes to say, Anthony Brindisi hasn't got a mind of his own. He is being pre-programmed even as he goes on local radio on what to say. The Dems give him permission to talk in favor of Republican points because we are a prominent Republican district. Yes, a +6 Republican district. That's true. He talks like a Republican nut, but, I think you're meant to say, but votes like a Democrat. Pro-abortion, anti-gun. Yes, Vic, you're correct. He is pro-abortion. He is anti-gun. He tries to say that he's in the middle ground. He's not. His actions do not match his words, and this is part of the reason why the Democratic Party could care less what he thinks. And I say that because if you look at his record, you will see no one supports what he does. He is useless. And because he's ineffective and he is just a mouthpiece, they don't care what he does. He's off to the side. Although the 2020 congressional race will be quite exciting with Steve Cornwell, the Broome County DA, George Phillips, who's a teacher and he's run before, and of course, former Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, rerunning again. But let me move on. Tina mentions, you mean like Facebook and Twitter does now? Yes, censorship. Yes, except imagine, we're talking about Bill H.R. 1111. Imagine it's not just Facebook and Twitter. Facebook and Twitter tell the Department of Peace that they didn't like what you said in a post, that they didn't like a picture you took or a video you watched, and they send it to that Department of Peace, and that Department of Peace then comes out and does what to you? That should terrify people. Vic Furman mentions H.R. 1111 has been in the news for weeks. It may have been, Vic. I work 9 hours a day, and I do this. I miss things sometimes. So this is one I definitely missed. And I can tell you, most people walking down the street don't know this. I get a lot of people who ask me questions about it all the time, about different bills, different laws, because I follow a lot. I do follow a lot. This one isn't one of them. And it should be. We should be scared. We should be scared of 35 people, 35 members of Congress, almost 10%, it's about 8% of Congress is willing to say that we should create a group of bullies, bullies for lack of a better word, that will go out with the full force and power of the United States government against its own people and internationally to make people be peaceful. I don't know what that means. Are you going to pacify them by killing them? That's a form of pacification. Are you going to pacify them by drugging them? Are you going to pacify them by neutering them? What does pacification mean? And that's what it is, pacification. What are you doing to make these people peaceful? Are you lobotomizing them? I mean, that all fits in the description of this organization. They could go around and lobotomize every political opponent they have, according to this group, with the full power of the United States government, because they don't like your political opinion. And that would make you peaceful. That would make you very, very peaceful. That's scary. That's scary. It's terrifying. And I've been in Facebook. Vic goes on to say that just like Donald Pardo, I'm not sure what you mean by that. He says, I've been in Facebook jail so many times, they put a revolving door in the cell. True. But the problem is, imagine that Facebook is now telling the government to come to you. It's secret police tactics. Tina goes on to say, that is what I meant by vague. What is the power we are giving them, and what rights are we giving up? I would tell you that you are giving up a lot. We're giving up too much. That this bill is giving away way too much. Look, folks, every time we pass a law, I don't care what the law is for, you give up freedom. The government has zero power. No, that's not the OK symbol. It's not some kind of sign. I know they're going to say it's some kind of racist thing. Whenever we pass a law, we give the government power because the government starts with zero power. All power belongs to the public. The Constitution is not a list of power of the people. It's not a list of power of the government. It is a list of the power the government doesn't have, and all power of the government, of the nation, lies with the people. And the only time the government can get a power is if we, through our Congress, give the government power. That's it. That is a fact. That is the Constitution. That is the government of the United States. The government has no power except what the people give it. All the power belongs to the people. So when we give the government the power to suddenly just make peace without an answer of how, and allow that organization to be controlled by a political group, and I'm sure the feelings that people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Maxine Waters, I'm sure they feel like this is a great idea, which for them means it must be true. But for everyone else, that's not the case. It doesn't make me feel good, and that's not because I'm a conservative or a Republican. It's because, and I am a conservative and a Republican, but it's not because of that. It's because you could use that against anyone and destroy their lives. Utterly and absolutely destroy people with that language. God, I'm really happy you brought that up, Tina, because that is really terrifying. And look at this bill. That's the description? I have to read this more in detail. But they're talking about, they're giving justifications. It's kind of like the Green New Deal. This is why we're doing the bill. We have to do it because it's a good thing. Because 40,000 people died in the United States as a result of gun violence. Well, not quite. Not really. Because 30,000 people committed suicide. And about 6,000 people were in the middle of the gang violence. They were gang-on-gang violence. Roughly about 4,000 people were victims of gun violence from criminals overall. So, no, that's not true. So they're misquoting facts. They're using that as a justification. You don't like people dying. No one likes anyone dying. Guns are bad. And to protect you, we're going to impose peace. What does that mean? I'm going to protect the government, which cannot. The government, think about this. The government does nothing right. Name something that the government does well besides taxing you. That's it. Taxes, wars, that's about it. And they're going to come out and they're going to protect you? That makes no sense. It makes no sense. Well, I don't know. Tina, you really hit on something there. You really did. And I know people may or may not be interested in this today, but I guarantee you if they create that, everyone's going to be interested in it when it happens. Absolutely. Because it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Okay. Let's go another 5-6 minutes. It's kind of difficult to talk nonstop. In the last 6 minutes, of course, please, the number keeps scrolling across. You can reach us on Twitter. You can reach us on YouTube. You can reach us on Facebook. You can call into the show, and I'll be happy to speak with you and hear your thoughts. My plan is I'm going to go about another 5-ish minutes or so, and then we'll be ending the segment. But I do hope people will be able to send this out, share it. Oh, there is something else I wanted to mention. If you have not heard about it, and you may, and I hope people do, I want to make sure people are aware. What was it? It's Facebook. On Monday the 28th at 6 p.m., I will be one of several people who will be conducting a anti-Socialism forum, an event, and that'll be at Binghamton University. That will be with George Phillips, myself. There is a third, and my brain is going to mush. We have 3 people who will be there. I'm going to bring up the event for you so you can see it yourself. Where is it? Okay, there it is. It's actually called The Case Against Socialism. And that's going to be an event. It's being brought to you by the Binghamton University College Republicans and the Binghamton College Turning Point USA. Please check it out. Be more than happy to be there. It's from 6. It'll probably go till 8 o'clock thereabouts. It's open to the public. Everyone is invited in. And we will be taking questions from the public, including those who believe socialism is a great idea. And I really hope that if someone thinks that socialism is a great idea, show up. Please, let's have a conversation. If you think socialism is the answer to everything, I really would love to take a question from you at this event. And that's going to be at Binghamton University. We are going to have Morgan Zager. It's going to be Morgan Zager, George Phillips, and myself. And there's a very specific reason why I was one of the people mentioned and suggested. Obviously, George Phillips is a historian and a history teacher, and Morgan Zager is a well-known public figure who's contributed in the news, and that should be quite interesting. So I'm looking forward to speaking about this. And this is for the Young Americans Against Socialism with Morgan Zager, who's been on Fox News and several other organizations. So I hope everyone's going to be able to come out to this. I believe we have seating for a couple hundred people. So it's open to all ages, all political beliefs. If you think that socialism is a great idea, fantastic, show up. Please explain, give me your question, give the panel the question, and we will answer it for you and see if we can address, prove us wrong. Tell us why you think socialism is great. Give us a question and let's discuss it. And I think that'll be a very powerful event. I'm looking forward to it. That's Monday the 28th at 6 p.m. Thanks to the Binghamton University Republicans and the Binghamton University Turning Point USA chapter. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I hope everyone's going to be able to show up for it. I think it's really been fun. I really enjoy speaking with everybody. I hope everyone has enjoyed listening to this. Hopefully you'll go back over some of there's a lot of things I didn't get to. I wanted to talk about the predictions that Elizabeth Warren, back in October of 2018, we said it was going to be Elizabeth Warren. It seems like we're going to be right. We wanted to talk about some of the, a lot of things. But that's the great thing about talking directly with the public. And I know that there are politicians out there at various levels of government, from the local all the way to the federal, that watch this program. And they listen to your comments. They listen to the issues that you think are important. And they sometimes change laws or change the way they're going forward because of the conversations they have here. And sometimes in the conversations, they follow up with me. And so don't ever think it's not important. Your voice is important. People are paying attention to it. Whether or not you notice it, that's another thing. But politicians, the politicos, they are paying a lot of attention to what you're doing. It's as important as voting. Speak out. And I am thankful that you've taken a little bit of your time on Saturday to spend it with me to speak out about what you think here. I appreciate that because you guys are wonderful and you make the difference. And you make my day. Work 9 hours a day, then I come home and I do another 5, 6, 8 hours sometimes of this. And you know what? As tiring as it is, as poor as I am, you make it worthwhile because we get to have a conversation and I get to learn things and you get to learn things and it makes a difference. And I did want to talk about impeachment because there's a major misunderstanding about it, but I'll do that as a separate post. Folks, I thank you. Tina DeBella, Vic Furman, Mark Secor, for all the people who I don't see right this second, Ed Caro, for the people I don't see who haven't commented but have been watching, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for even listening. I thank you for disagreeing. And I hope that you support us. Please leave your comments not only on Facebook, leave it on the YouTube as well. And if you can, please donate. Donate $1, donate a dime, doesn't matter. It all adds up, and we can. Whoops! Whoa! Wait!
Thank you for your support. Thank you for.
Oops. Yeah, can't run my own technology sometimes, but I thank you all for that, and I hope everyone's going to be very, very well. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye-bye.